Okay. Remember, the last thing we were talking about was the theme of modernity versus tradition. And we talked about the appearance of women, the way a woman is judged based on how she's dressed. And we talked about not only gender differences, we also talked about women going against other women in a patriarchal society. And this is obvious with Nadia, who would basically call Karima and tell her, "How dare you?" She said, "Come to work without a bra." And then it's obvious that she thinks that her behavior is indecent and immoral. Okay, so this is quite important. It's not only gender distinction, male versus female, men versus women. You also have women who have internalized the norms of a patriarchal society, and as a result, basically would agree with men in the way they perceive things. Yeah. Next paragraph, however, this is what we reach now. And then right off to Mr. Aziz's room. Now, what theme do we have in this passage? What kind of reaction does she have? What is the theme? What kind of theme do we have?
Irony. There is an irony of what we are, how people perceive us.
Okay, this is quite important. What she is and how people perceive her. And her reaction, can her reaction be considered a form of rebellion? Rather than being subdued, accepting the conventional code of dress, she goes what to Mr. Aziz, and she criticizes the piece of clothing, not only the one related to women, but also the one related to men in relation to neckties. Sorry. So can we say that basically you have a theme of rebellion, going against the norms, going against the conventions of society, and if you do that, basically you will be perceived as abnormal and bad. So what you are in contrast to how people perceive you. So again, this is an important theme that you have in addition to rebellion. Okay, but the next one before this mishap, what theme do we have in this section? What about related to the theme of isolation? Do we have alienation and isolation? What is contradictory? When would she talk to her colleagues? Does she really talk to them? Does she have friends?
She doesn't really like to communicate with her colleagues because she thinks they have a different mentality than hers.
Okay, so there is some kind of distancing, there is some kind of alienation. Yet, what is contradictory and paradoxical? Yet, what do we have when before she goes to bed?
She wants to take care of her colleagues.
She wants to take care of her colleagues. So remember, we said she's somebody who's environmentally concerned. She's also concerned about the quality of life. And then why is there all this filth at the water company? Usually water would stand for life. Here, what do we have? She's commenting on what? What level can we talk about here? On what level is the colors, the heap of papers, and all of that? What was the title? 31 Beautiful Green Trees. We said it's natural and also related to beauty, related to aesthetics. Do we have the element of aesthetics also here in this section? The beautiful. Do we have a criticism of ugliness?
Yes.
Okay, what can we add?
We can also say because she wanted their well-being and she wanted them to feel motivated to work. So she wanted to create a certain motivation, so which is why she went on modifying the office.
Okay, okay. Do we have a criticism of bureaucracy?
Yes.
In what way?
Like, because you said like it's all like papers, as if like in offices they don't care about like the well-being of the employee. They just view him in terms of their productivity.
Exactly. They see them in terms of productivity. They don't care about the quality of the setting, of the environment. What really matters is how they produce. And notice that she's not materialistic. She bought a desk from her own money. She asked to paint it red. Remember when she described the 31 beautiful green trees, how they were all colorful? Here also she talks about the color, about red, and then she wanted to send it to the water company. Okay, and I went to the work clearly on that day. In this section also,
And the doctor,
yeah,
we noticed that شو اسمه that she's more committed to nature and engaged in politics, which is very rare for a woman to be like aware of the environmental damage.
okay, so that would be quite important. Here also, but before reaching that point, we have the element of caring for others in the work environment. She sat with 6 of colleagues. She swept the windows, cleaned the place. Usually, where would you do such a thing? Cleaning, beautifying, improving, the quality of the surroundings. It's something you usually do
The house.
at her
In the
house,
house.
at the house, and then putting a bunch of flowers in a glass of water. And then usually, if a man does that, how would it be viewed? If a man would do that at work, even at
Not
home,
manly enough.
not
No,
Not
man,
manly enough.
it's not his role.
it's not his role. So you have gender distinction, but here it's not even her role when it comes to work, and and the refusal to allow the desk to be admitted. He asked me what it was about it, and I said to him, why do you have to have grey desk? Why would it be wrong if one employee were to be seated at the red, another green, a third yellow, and so on? What are these colors? The colors of, remember the description of the trees?
Rainbow.
Hmm? I couldn't hear you. The colors of
Said they
nature.
were vibrant colors.
Exactly, vibrant colors, the colors of nature, of flowers. Wouldn't this make everyone feel jolly? And then, and when she tells him that she bought it from her own money, and she would buy some simple pieces of furniture for the accounts room, and what happens? So, can we say, is it a form of rebellion also? Is it rebellion? She's rebelling against bureaucracy.
She's kind of rebelling against what the office applies on them, يعني in form of perceiving them as machines only for work and not caring about their psychological being.
Exactly, that would be a good argument. The man whom I still okay. Now we are talking about the man dismissing her, telling her to go back to her office, and would not allow the desk to be brought in. And we talked about the blood boiled in her veins, and she begins shouting, "Isn't it fair?" My question is, what's wrong with the red colored desk? My question is it normal to have a slight fainting fit after which they took her home? Every time they contradict her, every time there is a disagreement with her because she wants to beautify the environment, basically, this affects her on the physical level, and she's sent home. Remember last time I talked about something called deep ecology, being one with your surrounding, being one with the universe. Remember when the tree were cut? She was quite upset. And then we're going to have other instances where there is an association between her and the environment. And here she's so upset. Remember we talked about being over emotional, that they took her home. In the next paragraph, what is she talking about? That she has been talking about trifling matters, trifling matters. Is it true that the matters she was talking about were basically insignificant? Is it true? What does she say here? I have spoken about some things, but not all about them. Now I shall tell exactly how it was that they brought me wrongly and by force to this place. What is the sentence? Has the sentence been repeated at the beginning of the text? I'm going to tell my story how I was brought here wrongly and by force. So that would show us the theme of what kind of theme? If you're brought to an asylum wrongly and by force, what do we have? Oppression? What other theme? Injustice.
Doesn't perceive herself also as a lunatic or as crazy. She considers herself normal versus other perceive.
Exactly. She considers herself normal basically, but the reaction of people maybe is an exaggeration. This is reader's response. Some people would side with them. You have discrimination. Some Muhammad wrote, okay, discrimination because maybe had it been a man, do you think they would have reacted to her in the same manner? But actually, they would.
Can you repeat your question, please?
Okay. Now, reverse the roles, in relation to gender. Would the reaction of people be the same if we're dealing with a man and not a woman?
I don't think
Like
they would
men
be the same.
have the right to speak in society, not like women.
Okay. Again,
Yes, and I don't think there would be the fight scene with the guard and the delivery man. If it were a man, there wouldn't be this scene, I think.
I think they would not have this kind of scene. Okay. What else? Somebody else wanted to talk. What else?
دكتور يعني you meant that إنه if we switched roles مثلا they wouldn't have sent her home if she was a man.
Yes. Okay. Then they introduce another persona of Karima. We already have somebody who's environmentally concerned. And we see that also in the way she wants to marry a man who would care about trees, somebody who would who would sit by the river edge and then would care about the environment. You also have basically somebody who would care about aesthetics. You have somebody who would care about aesthetics. And now here we see another facet of her, another aspect which is related to the political aspect. Yeah, let's read it.
Doctor, please unmute yourself.
Okay, here in this paragraph, we talk about why she was wrongly brought and by force to this place, and we will introduce another level. So we already have the social level, the bureaucratic level, the environmental level, and now here the political level. Okay, what you have with the political level, what do we know about her? She did not know what kind of politician she would wanted to vote for. She was a woman who was basically interested in politics. Can we say that she was interested in politics or interested mostly? Usually, who's interested in politics? Again, is it related to gender?
Yes, usually
Yes, usually men are more interested.
in the politics.
Okay, but
حتى they didn't let her to vote.
they would not allow her to vote, and usually
Yes.
it's men who would be interested in politics. And we see that early on at school, even she marched at demonstration, participated basically in demonstration, and she kept reading the newspaper so that she would know who to vote, who would to vote for. So we already see that she's somebody who's different from other women on all levels. She would want to have a special husband. She would want to live in a place where her children would see flowers. She would not care about the husband, who would have money. Her values are different from other women. She's interested, she's politically engaged, she's interested in politics because of what? Remember at the beginning, we talked about the concept of, we talked about topophilia. Okay, remember the love of the city. She's concerned politically about the voting for the proper candidate because she loves her city. She loves the city. She's concerned about the life of the people in her city. And then there is the incident of the weasel. What happened with the incident of the weasel? Okay. Now, the story of the weasel is quite important because it also deals with the environment. Usually, a weasel is a nocturnal creature that would go out only at night. The fact that the weasel would go out during the day means something happened to its natural habitat. So somebody else would not care so much about the weasel, would not care about the environment. And notice here, anytime something happens to the environment, something happens to her, because she is connected to the universe, because she's connected to nature, because she's connected to the environment. She is one with the environment, and this is what we call topophilia. Okay, so she has again violent headaches that had me in its grip, and the chronic pain she used to suffer came back. And she sat at the edge of the pavement in a state of semi-collapse, crying bitterly. Is it an exaggerated reaction again? What do we have?
Exaggerated.
Yes, of course. Yes.
Nobody reacts like that to something that happens in nature.
Okay, so can we say that maybe she claims to be innocent, not to be mad, but at the same time we have description. In her description, she reveals her psychological and physical reactions that are exaggerated. So we have the two aspects of the story. One where we see that she is not being treated properly in a patriarchal society, yet we still say that maybe her reactions are exaggerated. And then some people came to calm her down. And then when the woman says there is no power or strength except through Allah, that statement would reveal what? That maybe the woman thought that something really terrible had happened to her, and she refuses to say what, and then she keeps on walking, and then until she reaches the elementary school. Yeah, what happened after that? There is an introduction of palm trees, dog, camels, and watch, but is it environmental? They're using these pictures to do what? In order to
For elections.
for elections, to push people to vote for them, because some people cannot read, and this is why they use symbols for them to know what to vote for. And then when somebody also notice the lack of freedom, people trying to persuade others to vote for their party, notice her reaction. What does she react to? What is she concerned about what does she expect from a political party or a candidate if she wants to vote for him?
To take care of the environment.
To take care of the environment. So maybe this is one of the messages that we have in the reading, that politics should not be dissociated from the environment. Does your party do anything about planting trees in the city instead of concrete? Has it formed well-equipped army to deal seriously with the weasel? Does it possess some medicine that can restore my good spirit? Notice mentioning her good spirit and her good health after the weasel, and then planting the trees because of deep ecology, because she feels one with the universe. And then what happened? She's criticizing the politicians on what level? Remember when we talked about reductive materialism? How does she view them in terms of
She described them as ugly and with double necks. They can't do anything. They are unable to do anything.
exactly? She focuses basically on their appearance, and then on their appearance that your bodies are flabby, and then she says a healthy mind is in a healthy body, and they don't have a healthy mind, and this is why they will not be able to do anything for the town, for the city, and to fulfill all their demands. And then apart from which, most of our ministers are angry and have such necks and doubt ability to do anything useful. Then she introduces a contrast between men and women. What is she talking about? She's asking about women. Where are the women? I see no women around me. Why have we not sought out the reasons for sparrows having fled from our city? And why is it so full of flies and mosquitoes? Now, what does she want? Maybe the implication would be that women would care about the environment. Notice why she says she brings in the sparrows. Remember the sparrow we had at the beginning of the reading to say what? What was the reference of the sparrow at the beginning of the reading? that
She
he
did
was
not want the sparrow to be poisoned by the food they serve in the asylum.
okay. So in that country, the sparrow would be poisoned by the food offered to people in the asylum. Here, what do we have? Sparrows would run away from the city because of the lack of proper conditions, and then the city is full of flies and mosquitoes. And remember, she was always dreaming about these beautiful green trees, because remember why she was late to work. Remember that she had a dream that the beautiful trees came back, and this is why she went to work without the bra. But how are they reacting towards her? What kind of reaction? What did they start doing? They started making fun of her and laughing. And then one man asked her to go inside the building, and then she paid him no attention. He demanded her identity card. He refused to give it back. She cursed him. She started to hit him. And then she says, found some of the people attacking me. And then there was a big fight. And what happens after that big fight? They took her back. Back home. So notice we always have incidents where she's taken back home. And then what does it symbolize to be taken back home? This is the second time. Remember the first time at the office. What does
يعني she's يعني this
It has
shows
to do
how
with gender.
they doesn't want her in the society, and she's not being accepted in the society,
Okay.
either in work or in politics.
Yes, and it's related.
And like women belong to their houses, and women cannot participate in anything else.
Exactly. Women cannot participate in anything else. Women cannot participate in public life. You know, if a man had a fight with the people, he would not have been taken home. And then in the next paragraph on the following day, now, what do we have here? An indication of what kind of society?
Extremely patriarchal society, because she did not care about the well-being of her daughter. She was concerned about her brother's job.
Okay, about the son's job, and then ruining the future of the brother. He's an officer, and then you might force him to leave his work. You're silly. Why can't you keep silent? So everything should be, again, we also have, is the mother similar to Nadia at the beginning of the reading at work? Because Nadia also would side with the boss, with Mr. Aziz, in the same manner that the mother would go against Karima. So you have also, in a patriarchal society, you would have women who have basically who would go against other women, because they have internalized consciousness. They would think that women are inferior and then men are important. They have a colonized consciousness. If you keep the term, is that taken from post-colonial theory, and then it also applies to sorry, let me drink. It also applies to, now, usually in post-colonial theory, in racial theory, and you can apply it to feminist theory, if you keep telling somebody, for example, we are the colonizer, you are barbarians, you are savage, you are uncivilized, we are here to colonize you, we are here to lead you to civilization. If you keep telling a black person, basically, you are inferior, we the white people are superior, then in some cases, they talk about what we call a colonized consciousness, basically because the people would end up believing that they are truly inferior. Same thing with women. If you keep telling a woman that you are inferior, you are worth nothing, men are only important, what's going to happen? Eventually, they might end up believing it. And in the next paragraph, basically, towards the end of the reading, we're going to have the same kind of colonized consciousness that Karima is going to experience. Is it clear what I mean by colonized consciousness?
Yes, thank you.
Yes.
Okay. Can we compare her to Gregor here in the Metamorphosis? Remember, Gregor was a victim. At the beginning of the reading, whenever he saw the situation, the negative, the bad situation of his family, He kept saying, I'm guilty. I felt hot with shame and grief. Here, what do we have? What is she doing to herself? How could I have done such a thing without taking account how much it affects my brother's sensitive position in my job? It was criminal of me. How is she depicting herself?
As an
As
aggressor.
if like,
As
As
yeah,
guilty.
if
because
her
like she
brother
was
is
the
the
cause of
victim.
the.
Yeah, aggressive, the cause, and guilty. So can we say that she has a colonized consciousness, that she is responsible? She is the one who's responsible to all of that. And then what about the story of the vase and then the brother breaking it? What did the mother do?
Again, the mother took the side of the brother.
Okay. And what did she do with the scissors? And the symbolic,
She
it's going to
wanted
do what?
abuse. It symbols abuse, and rather than reprimanding the brother because he did something wrong, she reprimands Karima for telling that her brother did something wrong.
And she wants to do what? To silence her.
Yes, doctor, and this has like a lot of like if you look at it has a deep meaning, like as if in the future you cannot talk, you cannot express yourself, you can express your thoughts freely.
Exactly. So the oppression, it reveals the oppression of women, and ironically, the oppression of women at the hands of another woman. And then the brother was there, standing, watching, and laughing and making fun of all of them.
That they made her feel like she can never go up against a man
Exactly.
because she will never win.
Because she will never win. A man has the higher status in society, in a patriarchal society. A woman is there only to be silenced, to stay at home. She has no say, basically, even outside when it comes to issues related to politics, even on the family level. Also, a woman is always guilty and has no power. Description of what? Of the attempt to cut what? The tongue, her tongue. Okay. Now, can we contrast it to the previous rebellion? Previously, she rebelled. Here, it's an act of what? Is it an act of rebellion or submission? Is she rebelling?
It's an act of giving up on her rights of speech.
Okay, it's an act of giving up on her right of speech, and
It's a contrast to the rebellion. She's submitting to whatever her mom did to her. She believes that she deserves to not to be silenced, as if she did something wrong.
okay, and then she remembers that maybe previously she had decided to commit suicide, but because she lives in a religious environment, she decided not to. And she brings in a cultural element, which is her circumcision, and she's trying to reassure herself that it will not be as painful. And we have till the end of the reading, you're going to see the mother's reaction, and then whether it's justified or not. What do we have here? What kind of reaction does the mother have? You get the feeling that she's concerned about her daughter, really cutting her off her tongue.
Yes, she was concerned because she was screaming and she got her, and she did not care if the neighbors were hearing her screaming or not.
Okay, and maybe she wanted the help of the neighbor.
And this
Yeah, Jacques.
Doctor?
Yes.
can this reflect that it's due to the lack of communication in the family?
What is due to the lack of communication in the family?
That she wants to cut her tongue.
It's because the mother kept telling her, you're always talking, getting your brother into trouble. You'd better be off silent. And outside also, at work and outside, she was always silenced as a woman. Let me ask you a question. Is it ironic that the mother would try to talk to her at the asylum and the brother is silent? Why depict this difference between the mother and the brother? Is it meaningful?
Yes, maybe I think it's because of two things. One, it may be because they're trying to depict the stereotype of women being emotional and men not showing emotion. No, you can't be manly if you show emotion. But I think there's another thing that maybe the mother feels guilty about encouraging her, or maybe putting that idea into her head that she has to cut off her tongue, and and she shows it by being talkative, but the brother feels guilty and he shows it by being distant. I don't know. I think there's two sides to this.
Okay, yes, it's a good answer. It's related to reader's response. These are two good possibilities. Notice the ending of the story. What do we have? She wants people to learn about the truth, to learn what happened to her, and then that she was put in this place wrongly and by force. Notice how many times in the reading you have the repetition of wrongly and by force. And time has passed. She's at the point of death. Her body has withered. Her hair has gone white. Her legs are no longer able to carry her. Yet, what is her hope? To go out for one single hour. Notice she puts a contrast, she establishes a contrast between the withering of her body, and yet, what do we have? The hope to see she still retains internally the love of her city. I may see my city and the road so dear to my heart. Again, the love she has for her city. Remember, we talked about topophilia, and she's still dreaming of seeing what? The 31 beautiful green trees. Despite everything, despite her mental sickness or so called mental sickness, she wishes that one day she would be able to go out, even if it is for an hour before she dies, to see the 31 beautiful green trees. It's ironic. Why? We know that the 31 beautiful green trees are no longer there. But what would they symbolize then?
And she has a little bit hope before that.
A hope, for her city, not
Would
for herself.
symbolize youth.
Youth, maybe.
No, I said hope before she dies.
Yeah, but hope before she dies that maybe outside somebody has done something, to do what? To beautify the city again. Somebody who's environmentally concerned, but we know that this is all dreams and nothing but dreams. And that would reveal at the end her love of her city that is constant, that does not disappear despite her so-called mental sickness. Okay. Any question about the reading?
Has psychological issues like no one could ever think of cutting his own tongue.
Okay. Then, do you think that the author wanted to exaggerate in order to prove a point? That if
Yes, 100%.
If he didn't
Because
if he didn't exaggerate, there wouldn't be much meaning in the story. Like, what would he say? The exaggeration was in place to maybe emphasize a few themes in the story, like the oppression of women, the gender stereotypes,
yes,
even mental health.
even mental health. Okay, exactly. And the author is a
and
woman.
actually,
Salwa Bakr is a woman. Okay, so she was defending some women's issues as well. Yes.
and doctor, she was using also phrases that are commonly used in our society, which made it more relatable to us and at some level.
Such as what kind of phrases?
Uh, for ex- for example, the cutting of the tongue, it's not familiar to us, and we kind of hear it at different points. Yeah.
Okay, so basically she wanted the reader to feel close, basically to identify maybe with the character. Many women would identify with being silenced in a patriarchal society. Maybe the element of exaggeration is to convey a point. And I think basically a major interpretation would be also the environmental element, that it is important to be happy to live in a city that is environmentally sound, to have trees, to have flowers, to have politicians who would want to preserve the environment, and to show us the oneness with the Karima's oneness with the universe, her closeness to the universe, to nature. And remember, this is what I said is a facet of deep ecology. Okay, deep ecology is the feeling of being one with the universe, close to nature. Whatever happens to nature would affect you. You are one. You put yourself in the shoes of the other, and here the other would be would be nature.